So, what do you do when you don't like the book? Hi, I'm Terry J. Haynes, and I was a reviewer for Publishers Weekly for almost 10 years, and I have started a series on how to write better book reviews. Um, just sharing my thoughts for all of you who want to get into book reviewing and maybe want some more insight on how to do that. So, what happens when you don't like a book? It's completely okay. You can be honest. You can say you don't like the book. For instance, when I worked at Barnes& and Noble, there was a really, really popular book. We sold a lot of copies, and everybody was ranting and raving about it. It was All the Light We Cannot See. So I decided that I was going to read that book just to see what all the buzz and hoopla was about. I could not get through that book. I tried it on audiobook. I tried it on hardcover. I tried it on ebook, and I to this day have not finished that book. Um, and that's okay. And I read literary fiction. It's okay. I didn't like that book. Unfortunately, um, we're in a time in society where a negative review is often viewed as an attack. People get combative about you saying you dislike something that possibly they liked. I'm sure we've all seen book reviews that has gone from I dislike the book and people turn it into you hate the author. Unfortunately, that is the time we live in, and you take that risk when you write a negative review. And remember, I'm talking about written reviews, not star reviews. But when you write a negative review, you take a risk that people are going to view it as an attack on their favorite author. Now, you can go another route, which I'm sure most of us have heard this phrase before. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. You can just not review the book. It's fine. You can just save that dislike for the group chat and the book club. It is completely okay if you don't want to write reviews. Now, we'll put a word of caution in for people who want to apply for digital ARC or ARC programs through publishing houses. So an ARC is an advanced reader copy. It is the books that publishers send out before the book is released to reviewers so they can write reviews. Those publishing houses are probably going to want a review out of you. So you can't say nothing at all. If you get into those programs, they do expect you to write a review. How to prevent writing negative reviews when you're in a program is make sure that you're applying to programs that are in your wheelhouse, things that you love. Okay, not like I want to explore. I don't read enough literary fiction, so I'm going to apply for this art program. Love, stay in your wheelhouse. Also, know that publishing houses are going to vet what you read. I'm sure many of them ask for where do you write your reviews, and they look at your reviews because it increases the chances of a positive review when the reviewer already reads that genre. So if you are romance heavy and your all of your reviews are romance and you're applying for a sci-fi art program, they might reject you simply because the chances that you're going to give a negative view because there are different aspects of those genres that are very different. And if you don't like it, if you don't like that genre, that could lead to a negative review. For instance, the pacing in literary fiction, All the Light We Cannot See, is very different than romance. Romance pacing is much faster than literary fiction. And if you primarily read romance, a literary fiction book could feel like it's not going anywhere for the first 50, 100 pages. You'd be like, is this going somewhere? Because the pacing is different and the expectation is different. So if you're going to get into a program, make sure it's what you love, where your wheelhouse are, because the just reading outside of your normal reading, if you're not accustomed to the aspects or the parts of another genre. For instance, if you like spicy romance and you're going to mystery, most mysteries don't even have any sex in them. So just know that when you're in an ARC program, make sure you're signing up for the ones you love. Now, let's talk about what we're not going to do. What we're not going to do is say something negative or berate the author. That is never, ever necessary. We never have to question or say negative and bad things about the author, like they're stupid or they're a bad writer. There's a way you can say they're a bad writer, but not in the spirit of cruelty, right? We are not going to be cruel to authors with negative reviews. You don't need to do that ever. And it decreases the value of your review when you take pot shots at the author. Okay. So, how can you word it when you don't want to you didn't like the book and you want to write a review for it, but you don't want to be unkind or cruel to the author? And I'm sure I don't need to go into an explanation of what I mean by cruel and unkind. We've read those kinds of reviews. So, a few years ago, I saw a review that I thought, and it was a low rated review that I thought was one of the best takes on writing a negative review. The reviewer said something like, when this author writes a few more books, I'd be willing to try again. So that is code for the writer needs to improve their craft, but their craft isn't bad. I didn't enjoy this book because the craft wasn't stellar, but I'd be willing to try again. So you can write reviews that are negative without trashing the author um, in a, I guess, a tasteful way. For instance, if you pick up a book that is marketed as romance and you get to the end of it and there is no happily ever after or happily for now, and that made you angry enough that you wanted to leave a negative review, which happens, you can say readers who enjoy a happy ever after may find this book challenging. So, in my last video, I said we write reviews for readers like us. So, there is a way you can write a negative review without berating the author, but still speak to people who might pick up this book who like books like you. For instance, I had phrases when I wrote reviews that would signal to certain people, you might not like this. I would say the slower pace may be a challenge for people who read thrillers. Or I would say the grittier nature of this book may be a challenge for people who enjoy cozy mysteries. So now I've said something. I've said I didn't enjoy this book because the expectation was this, and then it turned out to be that. The goal is to give a heads up to somebody picking this book up who might think this is a happily ever after, and it then ends up being a tragedy, which is actually a genre. So, the goal with writing a negative review is just to give somebody a heads up, just to say, hey, this might not be what you expect it to be because it wasn't what I expected to be. But I'll say again, what we're not going to do is we're not going to berate the author. We're not going to say mean things about her. And we're not going to be combative. We're not going to attack people's character over a book, especially when you can just not review it. So, those are my thoughts on negative reviews. Just be honest or don't say anything at all. Until the next time, happy reading.